There we are. Hello, good morning. And we've just been visited by birds, so Bean is talking back to the birds. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. My name is Margaret. I'm a historical fiction and fantasy writer and eclectic reader. And today is a Wednesday, so we're going to treat ourselves to a Wednesday wrap up. This is when I do a rapid book review of the bunch of books that I've read every 2 weeks on a Wednesday. So this week I thought I had 8. There are 8 in the thumbnail, and then I looked at the stack and there was one I forgot. So it's actually 9, but I didn't want to go back and do the thumbnail, even though I just did it this morning. So I did prep all the little reviews and the things I want to say. So, I do work at this and try to prepare, but sometimes things just get skipped. So I do have a question of the day, so I'll pop that up. What was the last book you read in one day? Meaning you couldn't put it down. I'm going to be talking about books I couldn't put down, unputdownable books on Friday's stream. So here every Wednesday and Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific. So 9 books, although one is a DNF, so that really is 8. I wanted to also point out that I'm doing something fun this week, which is related to books in real life, it is Portland Book Week this week. So last weekend started this week, and then it ends up this weekend. And basically there's a list of like 80 plus bookstores that are participating in the Portland area. And then there's a bingo board. And so I'm collecting stamps of bookstores that qualify for different prompts, which is pretty fun. So last year they did this, and I couldn't because I was in Yosemite celebrating my dad's birthday. So it is still his birthday on Saturday, but I'm going to be here in Portland, so I get to do Book Week this year. So with that funness out of the way, we're going to go in not random order, but sort of considered instinctual order. How about that? So the last book that I finished actually is called The Living Stones. It's by Ethel Colquhoun, if you can manage to extract that pronunciation from that author name. And as you can see, it's like a smart, modern looking a classic. It's a vintage book. It was written in 1956, and she speaks about her time in Cornwall from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And when she says stones, she's talking about like prehistoric and previous civilizations, stones in formation, like Stonehenge, but in Cornwall, and what they were used for and what people imagine they were used for, all the way down to today's country folklore and observances and festivals and things like that. So interesting. She was a surrealist painter that sort of got kicked out as surrealist because she refused to conform. And yeah, so that attracted to the book. I got it at a new bookstore to me, Selected Stories, and I was excited because I'm going to Cornwall for the first time this fall. But okay, so yes, not really a sympathetic narrator, Ms. Ethel Colquhoun. So I have a few quotes. I have a commonplace book where I'm writing my quotes, and so like there's a good one and sort of a problematic one, and then there's some interesting ones, which is related to the reason why I'm going to Cornwall. So the first one is page 79. Quote, "It was not much more than 100 years ago that these white puffs of steam first became visible. Before that, the Cornish landscape, still held by the medieval dream, lay in sylvan solitude, the air above it unshaken by the whining of plains." End quote. So I really liked that sentence. I marked it with a tab, and I was like, that's really pretty writing. But then I thought, the medieval dream and sylvan solitude. Well, okay, maybe it's different in the 1950s, of course, but it sounds pretty romanticized to me, and I'm sure any region that has old traditions is apt to be romanticized by outsiders like that. And the fact that she has an agenda, she comes across as very woo-woo, but in a surrealist way. So there's a modern way, and then there's apparently a surrealist way, and I didn't really jive with that. But there were some interesting observations that I pointed out. So page 148 was about climathon related quote, if I may explain my feeling on the subject of blood sports, because she's talking about the hunt, without priggishness, I would say that the human race can never enjoy the freedom of the cosmos until it ceases to exploit the other races with which it must share its life. Ta-da! And there's our lesson for today. Humans have to get along with everybody. So that was a good one, even though it was way back then. She saw it coming. And then page 210, she's talking about, so some of the old stone monuments were rumored to be places where people did human sacrifice, which, how reliable, I don't know. But then she says, well, compare that to modern warfare, and industry too exacts its toll through high accident rate and occupational disease. How is it that we exonerate ourselves from these colossal inadvertencies, yet stand aghast at the report of one ritual murder? Fair enough. You juxtapose like one ritual murder to a society that really takes care of each other to our society, which just appears not to. And, she may have a point right there. And then the last one, page 236, I thought I would share is the final piece of the book. The forces ravaging the valley today are incomparably more harmful. This is talking about cutting down the trees in the forest, than the obscure bogey or two which may remain in a bewitched cranny here and there from long past ages. So again, she believes in this like psychic energy in Cornwall. So a bogey meaning just like a spirit haunting the place it's much less harmful than people going in and cutting down trees, stealing lumber, because like there's no landowner there anymore, so there's no one to prevent it. It's just like in limbo. So yeah, there were some good points. But this press, Classics of Pushkin Press, has a few of her books that were reprinted, and they look very inviting. They're a mid-20th century painter with an interesting eye for detail and a nice way of writing, but I don't think we're going to get on because of the things that she highlights and just the different perspective. So we'll leave that there. Let's see. The next one. Goodness me. That was this one. I wasn't going to forget the banners, but I did forget the banners. All right. So that was the first book. Hi, Julie. Welcome in. So yeah, I'm not daunted. I'm still going to be heading to Cornwall. That last piece about the cutting down of the forest is interesting because the Oak and Bones book that I read, that is where I'm going to visit in Cornwall on Bodmin Moor, it has transformed itself into a nonprofit called the 1,000-Year Trust. If you're interested, you can look it up. The very short-sightedness of our present civilization is the reason they call themselves the 1,000-Year Trust, because they're trying to stretch our concerns a lot farther into the future and future generations. So I dive with that. That's more of my perspective. So related. All right. So the next one I had was the DNF. Yeah, let's do the DNF next. So I don't remember who made me pick this up. It's a library book and I requested it. It's called Goodbye Again by Johnny Sun. Johnny Sun is the one who I think illustrated Lin-Manuel Miranda's book. But in this one, he's just writing. It's essays. And like I said, who recommended it? It wasn't the Burnout book. But the reason I am DNFing it and just returning to the library is that it's too depressing to read, especially now. I am DNFing it like 45 pages, even though it isn't a really long book. And I have an example to share just in case this appeals to you and you want to actually check it out. By the way, I have all the links to buy these books through bookshop.org, which is not a monopoly. It supports indie bookstores and affiliates like myself who recommend books. So maybe this will make you want to read it. So this is one of the first essays called Filling the Blankness. Second paragraph, this blankness is one of the scariest things to me. I don't enjoy having time that's been unaccounted for because it immediately makes me feel like I should be doing something with it, and then I can't think of anything that I could possibly be doing that would be worthwhile enough to live up to the raw potential of any amount of available time. Nothing I choose to fill that time with feels like it would be enough. And it makes me sad that the thing that feels closest is taking any time and converting it into some sort of productiveness. So, yeah, that's too close to home. So he's struggling with like the things that I am struggling with. And so he's not doing it in like an enlightening, positive way. He's doing it in like a wrestling with devils way. And I can't keep going after 45 pages. So that is that story. But interesting stuff. Just not in the headspace for it. The next book, and again, I forgot to put it up, Memory Police. So, Memory Police is this book by Yoko Ogawa. Ta-da! You may have seen it before. It is a translated work of fiction. It was written actually a pretty long time ago, but it was only translated into English a few years ago. Let's see. English translation 2019, originally written 1994. So I was thinking like 1994, what events was she trying to comment on? Is interesting. So I would recommend this for Women in Translation, which is coming up in August. Really, really good. 5-star recommendation for me. I would also recommend that you, after you've read it, because it's full of spoilers, but I held off with this video until I had finished it. It's Leslie and Elaine discussing the book that they buddy read for Leslie's readathon, Interview at the Vampire Inspired Readathon. And this was on someone's shelf and they were reading it for that. But I'm going to do a separate, like I'm going to go into more depth about the things that I picked up from this, but it's basically a little bit of magical realism. We're in a world where things happen and are not explained, which can't happen in our world, but it's kind of an allegory for a totalitarian state. So staying on theme with the totalitarianism. And Memory Police refers to the fact that in this world, on this island, there are police and they take things from your memory and you have to part with everything that reminds you of that. And actually you don't remember what the thing is. So it's like mind control, but not like literal mind control. So it's discussed and dissected in a very gentle way. I really, really liked it. So I'm going to leave this for its own review. But yeah, just highly recommend Women in Translation. Not cozy, definitely not cozy, but a great social commentary book with a little bit of like supernatural, unexplained magicness. Oh, hello, Anne. Welcome in. The last book I read in one day happened yesterday. It was Whistler by Anne Patchett. Wow. All right. So that's our answer to the question of the day. Thank you. This is the link to the Memory Police conversation. Again, lots of spoilers, so go only if you've read the book before. And just forewarned, it's 3 hours long. They do a lot of side questing. Hello, Lynn. Good afternoon. Oh, this isn't like magical realism like the Latin American authors that you've studied, though. There was another book that you were like, no, I didn't get that. So maybe this is included in that as well. But in the discussion with Leslie and Elaine, they were kind of trying to get to how does this mechanically happen? And I think that sort of misses the point, because the point is that something is taken away from the people. And I don't really care how it is taken away. That's why it's magical, because she's trying to portray the terror and the fear that is in the state just simply by removing things and like the threat. And I thought that was very effective. So it's not like dream state stuff, which I don't get along with either. All right, so I'll save that for its own standalone review. The next one is Remember the Banner, a novel love story. So this is by Ashley Poston. And again, this is not magical realism, but it does have supernatural element, but here's how I would describe it. So I like Ashley Poston. I've read one of her other books. I have one more on the shelf. Her romance lands between spooky and magical, right? So there's something that it's the real world, but there's some other worldly manipulation that suspends reality in order for the meet cute to happen. So the thing is, they're very easily guessable, at least to me. And so first one I read, I really liked that. And I was fine with like guessing what the twist was. This one I was like, isn't it obvious what the twist is? So there was that. But also, I just found there to be a disturbing number of errors. Some of them, there's my pages turned down on the bottom, means like something's wrong on that page. And there's only a couple at the top. So it sounded like someone had dictated and then they didn't get edited out. Like the phrase unread texts came out on read or on read. So sort of those like, did someone really go carefully through this? It's traditionally published. So it was a bit odd. And then repetitive devices like his minty eyes and their hands curled into fists, like sometimes on the same page, mentioning the same thing at least twice. I was like, okay, it's feeling a little rushed, a little lazy. So I do like her writing. Usually she writes newsletters that I used to really love. And they're not very often. So she's just really authentic and honest in those and relatable. But this just didn't work for me. So far we're not having a lot of great books, although Memory Police is one and I just didn't want to tell you about it yet. I'm going to read one more Ashley Poston because I've got it on my shelf. I got them together, 7-year slip. And after that, we will see if like it's just not my thing anymore. So, all right. So the next one I'm also not going to tell you about. This is Living Resistance by Caitlin B. Curtis. I'm going to put a link in for the discussion I had with Tasman about this. So last Friday, I had a guest on and we talked about a lot of books that we were reading for Climathon because it was the founder of Climathon. It was Tasman. And I did mention this book and sort of described it to Tasman and my reading experience. And then she sort of talked about like what mode that would be in. And so I actually talked a lot about it and my thoughts and feelings. And so I didn't want to regurgitate that. I'm putting the link to that video from Friday in the chat. And it's also time-stamped to the time where we talk about Living Resistance. So in case you want a quick sidebar, that is basically my review. So I'm flashlighting you over there to pick that up. Also, okay, it was just fine. There were some good points. There was, it just felt like it was speaking to a different audience. So I didn't really appreciate the multiple random references to pop culture stuff. So there, another just instance of like something in the style just felt off. And that was the references to pop culture as examples. Sometimes that works. And in this one, it felt more conversational because they were just like dropped in and they felt rather scattered rather than considered. And for a book that's talking about living resistance and it has a pretty sort of heavy topic, it's weird to just jump into, oh, and that Netflix series, Madam Secretary, this guy does this. And you're like, it felt like a weird shift. So again, some good points, but just it wasn't my book. The The two things that I noted in here that I will actually share, though, were good points, and the problem is that they were quotes from other people that I was like, oh, that's really, oh, it's someone else saying it. That's why I was like, it's a bit of a letdown. So one of them is 182 is a quote from Arundhati Roy, who is a big name author. Arundhati Roy writes about this time we are in, not only a time of a worldwide pandemic, but also a time in which we continue to fight for a better and more equitable world. She says, we can choose to walk through it, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our databanks, and dead ideas, our dead rivers and smoky skies behind us. Or we can walk through lightly, with little luggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it. I was like, bam, that's great, but it's a quote. So I really like that, imagining another world, and that's like what she's reaching for. And then the other one, page 188, is another quote from Rabbi Alan Liu in This Is Real and You Are Completely Unprepared, which is a great title. We spend a great deal of time and energy propping up our identity. An identity we realize at bottom is really a construct. So it is that we are always living at some distance from ourselves. We live in a fearful state of siege, trying to prop up an identity that keeps crumbling, that we secretly intuit to be empty. But something persists, something fundamentally nameless and empty, something that remains when all else has fallen away. And so that was like a visualization that I could really relate to, but it was a quote. So kind of like Jessica said, it's less original than I would have hoped. Yeah. Ooh, we got an answer here from Diane. Hello. Unputdownable book, The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. Wow. You read it in 2024. Nice. And then you also read The Mother by Pearl S. Buck. There's something about her writing that flows so easy to me. The culture, etc. Yeah. Really neat. That's like a classic from first half of the 20th century, I believe. I read The Good Earth quite a while ago, and I remember liking it. Very nice. Julie says The Good Earth and Pearl S. Buck in general is one of my all-time favorite classics, Diane. Yeah, here we go. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that with me. Sometimes I feel isolated appreciating her work. I just love her so much. I need to dive back into her. She a wonderful author bio study too. I'm guessing there's a biography of her, maybe a little bit more recent. Nice. Hello, Constance. Welcome in. We are on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, book 6 of 9. So I was going to stop in the middle here, and like a couple people have done the question of the day just to, yeah, Aaron, pop it back up here. What was the last book you read in one day? Because Friday's stream from me is going to be my unputdownable books of the last like 11 months. I almost went through a year, and then I was like, this is too many books. So yeah, we're going to see if we come to any conclusions about what makes a book unputdownable Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific. But feel free to answer if that is something you can remember. And then I'm going to go on to the second half of these. We have A Writer's Paris. So this is a reread, and this is a intentional reread. You'll see why I say that in a second. And it's this beautiful book. I pointed it out before. It's got texture, which I really appreciated. It's by Eric Meisel, subtitle A Guided Journey for the Creative Soul. And there's a lot that I liked about it. And we see a little rainbow of tabs there. This book got the heart of the program. I reread this to sort of inspire myself and shake loose the stuckness. But the overall takeaway, I would say, was find your authenticity and find your joy, which is sort of a bigger thing than writing and a bigger thing than Paris. And so that's what I latched onto. I'm returning to Paris this fall for a few days. And so I'm going to strive for those feelings, the authenticity and the joy while I'm there. And then just a few examples to give you a flavor of this book. I really like Eric Meisel's tone of voice, his voice as an author. So this one spoke to me pretty clearly. If you criticize yourself for being indolent and indulgent, you are being reasonable in one sense, but absurd in another. Opt to see this absurdity. Consider writing in Paris to be good for humanity and not an abuse of privilege. I was like, okay, he's talking to a lot of people who are me, right? So I like that. Let's see, page 96. We had, what was this? Writer, no. Oh, there we go. Okay. So spending several months in Paris writing, painting, or composing is an affordable, workable, doable dream. You will need to plan, which may be an undeveloped part of your nature. Not for me. If you don't normally save, you will need to develop the ability to do so. Most importantly, you will need to risk and believe. If you can plan, save, risk, and believe, Paris is yours. Once you are capable of planning, saving, risking, and believing, you can not only go to Paris, you can also make your writing dreams come true. You need to plan for your writing. I did that. You need to save time for your writing. I did that. You need to risk by getting your fingers tapping on the keys of your computer keyboard or moving pencil along paper despite the weight in your heart. I did that. You need to believe that you have something to say, that you will get it said by the third or fourth draft, and that it is useful, meaningful, and sensible to try. And there is where we fall down. And that is why I'm not going to be writing in Paris in any intentional capacity. So yeah. So that was interesting. He's incisive, and he's I think helpful reading through this. This is like something I got 15 years ago, dreaming about writing, and that sort of tough love or like lecture talk is actually helpful. I followed that up with page 180, and there's just a few little pieces towards the end that I thought were juicy. Oh, is it tagged? Yes, it is. Okay, here's an interesting one. I once made this point in a book I was writing, and my editor wrote me a caustic email. Is the solution you're proposing that we maintain adaptive illusions even though we can see right through them? That's not very helpful. Unfortunately, there isn't a better answer available. We have become too smart not to know that our cherished beliefs are illusory. Now we must grow into this terrible knowledge and learn how to live in a world that has meaning only if and when we contrive that meaning. This is not an easy job, but at least we as writers have the rhetorical skills to create the best sounding illusions. Oh, knife to the heart, right? So if you didn't think that's true, maybe you're not at the same place that he and I are. But contrive your own meaning. That's what I'm really struggling with these days. And that sort of talk is helpful. I'm doing a lot of journaling, writing in order to find the shape of that for me. So that was nice too to see. And 182. Learning how to chat convincingly with yourself about your meaning-making obligations is the largest part of your education as a creative person. Agree or disagree? Chat convincingly with yourself about your meaning-making obligations. Yes, that's what I'm trying to do right now. And then the last one, 184, it's just funny. This is like talking about his voice and how delightful it is. You might try a cabin in a snowy place and venture to Maine or Idaho. This is your most dangerous option, as by committing to the isolation of a snowbound cabin, you'll be setting yourself up to do nothing but write. A setup fraught with pressure and expectation. You'll have angels and devils dancing in the flames of your wood fire, unbroken silence, and the splendid or painful firings of your own brain. You could write a whole play in a week or go insane. Interesting choices. So yeah, Eric Meisel. He's written several books about writing and like traveling and inspiration. So I really highly recommend Eric Meisel. 5-star, all the hearts, reread. Definitely going to keep this edition. It's a different edition in the links below where I put you to Bookshop, because this is an older one, obviously over 10 years old, but it's got neat illustrations in the new one as well. Now we come to another reread, but let me check the chat and catch up. Let's see. Yes. Hi, Erin. Constance says hello. Erin's answer of the day, 3 Days in June by Ann Tyler. It was for a reading prompt in Shorty September to read a book in a day, but I did really love it too. Very nice. And that's a good memory device because, Shorty September will get you reading those shorter books. 3 days in June. Okay, very nice. And Julie had an answer, Passing by Nella Larson, which is a short novel. Again, that's a good choice for that. We've got The Birds by Tarjei Vesaas, who's Norwegian. Oh, that's cool. I don't know that one. Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass. Excellent. And Junkie by William S. Burroughs. Ooh, wow. That sounds like a fraught one because William S. Burroughs is always, I think, a little hard to read. Nice. You've got to write a little bit of something just so later you can say, I wrote that in Paris. Are you going to remember, though, when it's subsumed in a bigger work? Yeah, I write postcards when I travel so that other people get bits of my writing. So really, that's the most unselfish way to go. Well, that's how I'll interpret that. Contrive your own meanings is Mad World. That sounds like a concept to deep dive into. Exactly. And that is what I am doing. So that's why I appreciated saying that. Wrote that one down, says Diane. Nice. Yep, we conjured Greg. I thought about it as I said it. Junkie, yeah, Diane. And postcards are good enough. Excellent. Thank you, Laura. Hi, Laura. So we're moving on to my other reread. And this was not intentional. This was an accidental reread. Now, this is the hardcover with, it's got cellophane on it, so it's a little hard to see. But there's a dolphin. And there's a big old castle on the hill. It's called This Rough Magic by Mary Stewart. And this it's not a first edition. Maybe it is. 1964? Could that be a first edition? Anyway, it's $5. I picked it up because I like Mary Stewart. And I didn't think I had read this yet. And then I got home and I saw that I had read it and rated it a 3. So obviously it was not my favorite. But I thought, well, if I didn't remember it, maybe I'll like it better this time. So I actually read it. And, okay, so all the ones pointing down are the ones where I rolled my eyes and I was like, oh no, this is why I gave it 3 stars. So there were a few good patches and then a lot of oh no, is this so dated? So I do like Mary Stewart. She tends to do romances that are insta-love, that are set in gorgeous locales, like Scotland or Greece specifically. And she's 50s, 60s setting. That's when she's writing, and when she's writing contemporaneously about people. It's a young woman, mostly in her 20s, late 20s, and she's going through something and just meets someone and immediately that's the one. Because someone explained it as, well, she does that because that's how it was with her and her husband. And I was like, oh, okay. So there's the background. This Rough Magic, if you are me, you did not recognize it, but there's enough references dropped in the book that it's made painfully obvious, is a quote taken from The Tempest. So it's a Shakespeare quote in the title, which I think should be in some sort of readathon prompt. There are so many. For example, this one that's on my short list, Told by an Idiot by Rose Macaulay. Virago classic. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, another book signifying nothing. So that's from Macbeth, I think. So anyway, Shakespeare quotes in titles, just like a hobby of mine. I want to do something with that. But This Rough Magic is not a play that I've read, The Tempest. So let's see. The reason I call it dated is because there's a lot of machismo. There's the insta-love, and more than the insta-love, because she does that better in other books. It's these unwritten leaps of action. So it's someone said to her, show don't tell, but she wrote it like a play. So it's just the dialogue, and you don't actually see anything with description, if that makes sense. So here's an example. Let's see, 146. Nope, not 146. Yeah, let's see. Setting description. 169. 169. Okay. This is the two love interests. Did you mean what you said down there on the beach? The abrupt, almost casual question threw me for a moment. On the beach? When? What did I say? I realized I wasn't meant to hear it. We were just starting up the steps. There was a pause. This is when she's thinking furiously and she realizes what he means, but she doesn't say any of that, even though we're in first person. A log fell in with a soft crash and a jet of hissing light. I said with some difficulty. That's all we get. With some difficulty. You don't ask much, do you? And I think this is a phrase we don't use that much anymore. It's sort of like in French, I had a really hard time understanding the tone of tu m'étonnes, which is like you shock me, but it's with a sarcastic bent. So it's like, really? Question mark. Like that's our equivalent, is like you shock me. For this, you don't ask much, do you? Is that positive? Is it like, what's the tone? She gives us so little, and I sometimes go astray interpreting what she means us to take from this. Is she admitting that she really likes him? Is she putting him off? Is that a deflection? Like, I can't tell. Let's see. And then 320. Okay, so this is actually a really cool scene. But so she's outside and she's looking in and no one can see her and they all think she's gone or dead. And she gets one of the people who's in the know out and he's telling her what's happened, so she's caught up with like the investigation. He says, he fought, but we had him. Then Max sent me back in the boat to look for you. And when I got back, Mr. Manning was pretending to be surprised and very angry. But Max just said, "Where is she? Where's my girl?" And had him by the throat. And I'm like, where's my girl? They're not declared. They're like, it just felt icky. So, you know, Mary Stuart, I really love other elements, but sometimes she's a little dated. So I had an example, a better example of like the positive pieces of how she does character and setting. So this is basically describing people that are part of the setting. A festival in on Crete. It's like a saint festival. The village banners with their pious legends were crudely painted, enormous and cruelly heavy, so that the men carrying them sweated and trembled under the weight, and the faces of the boys helping them wore expressions of fierce and dedicated gravity. That's really descriptive. That's really good. So I don't know. I just can't take that part sometimes, and like the expressions I don't understand because they're dated, and the machismo and stuff that's like icky, and then like the stuff there's nothing communicated. So that's why I was like, oh yeah, I gave it another quarter star, but it's still only 3.25. But I like that. I like that version. I don't know. I'm conflicted about it. Okay, two more books. Let me check in with the chat. Let's see. Ooh, okay. Julie says Junkie was Burroughs' first published book. Oh, it was also a very easy read, unlike his later stuff. Oh, okay. Well, that is a good point then. Thank you for sharing. Hello, Gareth. Another drive-by. Wanted to wish you well. Thank you, Gareth. Gareth got to see his grandson. Wow, it happened. I can't remember when it happened. You've been talking about the kitten for a while, so yeah, that's nice though. Anne says, I have both Junkie and Queer by William Burroughs on my watch out for in used bookstores. Excellent. Oh, and speaking of used bookstores, did I? Yes, I did. Here it is. I was going to say something about this at the beginning. I forgot. So, Portland Book Week is happening now. Oh, no, I did say something about it. And these are all the 80 plus bookstores. This is my like stamped bingo board. And Monday I went to a bookstore. Tuesday I went to a bookstore. And today I have plans to go to more bookstores, especially the ones that are new to me, and especially the ones that will get me specific stamps so I can enter into a raffle. So that's just some fun. And a lot of them are used. There's also some that fit in with the Pride theme because they're LGBTQ owned. And that is a stamp. That is a square. So I don't know if you guys have book weeks in your town. You kind of have to be a big town to do that, maybe. I don't know. But that's the fun that I'm having this week and the mission I'm setting myself. All right, the last two books. Yeah, it is an amazing title. I mean, you're borrowing from the Bard, so. And Erin wants to read Mary Stewart's Arthurian books one day. Yes, The Crystal Cave, etc. That's actually on my shelf as well. So yeah, good taste. All right, so the final ones are social science / self-help. This one I picked up, it's called Goblin Mode. Look at how cute that cover is, right? Like, how could you not leave with that at a used bookstore? And okay, so I grew up conditioned to think goblins were sort of like gross and evil, right? But the author, Michaela Coyle, takes the time in this book to say, it's just divergent. It's not gross or evil. Let's take a look at what goblins do and how they live life. And basically, it's like people who like bugs and like gross things. That's okay. And people who like comfort, like, I don't know, Tauruses. And it's just a nice, gentle way of persuading people that it's okay to be comfortable with yourself and authentic and not always strive to meet other people's expectations. And so I really appreciated that. Good reminder. And so cute little book. There's insights into authenticity. It's modern life. Oh yeah, dealing with modern life. Neurodivergence is sort of addressed, and like just looking for happiness. And oh, I didn't look up the link for this. Dang it. I thought I got all the links that I needed, but okay. I'll bring that up really quick. So page 25, be a good community member. Here's a sample. So much of the goblin ethos is about pushing back against social and beauty norms and finding a new way through the world. And it's difficult to create a new world like this when you're alone. There are so many other wonderful goblins out there with great ideas and cool treasures, and they're all devoted to this fun, feral aesthetic that has a surprising amount of meaning and power in a late-stage capitalist world. Yes! So there we go. There's the secret to why I like this book. It's talking about doing cool things with great people and making your own meaning together and giving the finger to the late-stage capitalists. So all the things in one. And I thought maybe the table of contents would be a good indicator of the range. So like our goblins ourselves is the first chapter, but why we long for the goblin life, how to get in tune with the ugly parts of nature, clothing, both like mending and how to find what you like, especially for people who have like texture issues, making your living space goblin cozy. So sort of like hobbity, but like be okay with the goblinness. What you can learn from the weird little animals. So the axolotls make a little appearance here, as well as others. Turning foraged goods into potions and treats. So that's both foraging and like apothecary stuff. So it's like cozy. It's kind of like cottagecore. And then self-care. So go forth and goblin. So it's just a cute, like self-help, but also just like reminder of what's important in life kind of book. And I really enjoyed it. Was there anything else on this one? Rethink the idea of value. Okay, so the link I was going to tell you about relates to a podcast, Biblioserendipitously. Okay, I'm going to read this paragraph as another little sample. Putting together a goblin collection is a great time to rethink the idea of value altogether. Value. The pile of old grocery lists that you keep on your desk might not be worth anything, but it could bring you joy to look at them and remember what they mean to you. A box full of battered birthday cards doesn't need to have a huge resale value to be important to you. It's not bad to care about your things. Loving the horde of beetle exoskeletons you've been curating doesn't make you shallow or materialistic. It makes sense that you'd care a lot about these things you've been thinking about and taking care of and collecting for years. Other people might not value your cool bug shells in the same way, but that doesn't mean they're valueless. The value you place on your objects matters. The way you care for your things is important. And I just really liked that because, you know, I do a lot of decluttering talk, trying to talk the talk. And, you know, it is healthy. It is good to maybe to declutter and think whether you need the things, but also like things you foraged or found and a collection. And it just lifts your spirits. Like You don't need to declutter it. There's no declutter police, like the memory police going around saying you're not minimalist enough or your apartment doesn't look enough like a magazine. So this thing about value, though, just made me think of a recent Planet Critical episode. And I know you've probably heard me mention this before. Planet Critical is a podcast by Rachel Donald. It's a YouTube channel. And she had someone on that was talking about alternate currencies or complementary currencies. And, late stage capitalism being what it was. She brought up something, or her guest brought up something that was something I'd never heard of, and I've studied economics, but it was something in the 1930s called the Virgil miracle, and Virgil is Worgl with an umlaut over the O, so it's Virgil, and it was called the Virgil miracle because basically when everyone was in the depths of the Depression in the 1930s and inflation was too high and no one had work, this mayor of the town of Virgil came up with the idea of issuing scrip, like we used to at Catholic school, issuing like IOUs, and you would have, you would be paid in them and you would pay in them for everything in the town. And the key, maybe factor in this working was that the value of the scrip went down 1% every month. And so that encouraged people to spend and circulate the money rather than hoard it, because it's just papers that say IOU or scrip, so there's no amassing, hoarding wealth. You're circulating value through the community. And I was like, what? Then I think it was working really well. But within the year, the Austrian central bank heard of it and was like, wait, you can't celebrate this. That's crazy. That would put us out of business with the regular currency. And so they made it illegal somehow. And after a few years, like, they won. So everyone was depressed and inflation up and unemployment up again. Yay, Austrian central bank. So anyway, that podcast was really interesting. And I will look it up real quick so I can link it here. And I'll also put a card up because that might be easier for people on Team Replay. Jeremy Lent. Yeah, that's who it was. And I don't know where he's from, but he has a strange accent. Like, it might be French, but he doesn't say anywhere that he's French. So, let me pop that in here. There. Anne says, I need to read Told by an Idiot, and reading that quickly, it looked like a toilet to my brain. Yeah, it's on my stack. It's been on there for a couple months, but I haven't read it yet. So are goblins different from trolls? I'm so confused. She could have used trolls, but I think trolls, she was like deconstructing the ideas, and she actually explicitly addressed the fact that goblins in the Harry Potter franchise and in Lord of the Rings are portrayed often with like Jewish stereotypes, and they're like typically portrayed that way because of anti-Semitism. And that's not what we're doing here. And we're going to say these valuable things about the goblin way of life, and in a way that sort of takes goblin things, but like it tries to take away all like the mad kind of like icky stuff. So I think trolls would have been a little bit weirder, because a troll, it is European folklore, but now we've got like modern day trolls, which are like little plastic dolls with hair. And then the whole movie franchise based on trolls. So I don't know. Maybe that's why she chose goblins, because it was a clearer field for meaning making. I don't know. Goblin Cozy added this one too. Yeah, Goblin Mode. Michaela Coyle. So that was fun. Does your collection of beetle exoskeletons spark joy? Right? Exactly. That's what you need to ask yourself. It's subjective. So that is the link to the Planet Critical episode with Jeremy Lent. Diane says, trolls aren't as smart, I don't think. They're rude and slow, while goblins are small, hunters, and intelligent. Yeah, I mean, someone with a bigger background in folklore would be better able to advise you. So I can't claim that, but I just thought it was a cool lens to bring up the same points as a lot of other things that are helpful. Okay, last book. This is the one that was like really helpful. So I put a heart on A Writer's Paris because that was really my favorite book. This is the starred book of this wrap-up collection. This is the 5-star book, Social Sciences. I put it on the bookshop below. It's on a few playlists. Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle by Emily Nagoski and Amelia Nagoski. And so these are two twin sisters that have, one has a background in, I think, psychology and research, and then one has a background in music, like conducting and choral arranging or something like that. So they wrote this book because burnout, and it's got practical tips and solutions. So it's not just the research, but it has like, here's what you can do to make this thing more workable. Here's what you can do when this pops up. I thought that was really practical, and I love that. But also it has stats about how many people this affects and like how it affects them. So the "you're not alone" is supported by factual evidence. And then also they give the science about why it happens this way. Like the stress cycle is evolutionary based, or like the chemicals that are released have this type of process of like getting digested or whatever it is. So actual statistics, actual science, 100. I loved, this was a really helpful book. So some samples that made me like vibe with this. Page 25. If you're hiding from your life, you're past your threshold. Say it with me. Yeah. So I recently, started therapy again this year, and went and was like, yeah, I feel like I'm leaving the house to escape myself. Tell me more. So yeah, definitely right there in the pages. Past my threshold. What else do we have? Page 45. We have using a certain principle about goal setting. No, using a certain principle about should I stay or should I go now? If you want to try using this principle rationally, all you have to do is write 4 lists. What are the benefits of continuing? What are the benefits of stopping? What are the costs of continuing? What are the costs of stopping? And in case you didn't connect the dots, this is what I was doing about writing when I did my author update. And yeah, it didn't like solve the puzzle, Pat solved the puzzle, Pat Sajak. But it did sort of like get a little bit of the blockage out of the brain to help me think about the writing dream and how I was doing and all that. So that was good. Page 53, we have new criteria for goals. Okay, so you may have heard of SMART goals. This takes a different approach. Basically, they have novel framing of things, frameworks for processes, and one of them is the monitor. So this is how they grappled with the phenomenon of expectations, both that we place on ourselves from conditioning and that society places on us. And so basically our mind sort of calculates in the background, like, we're putting in this amount of effort. This is how hard it's supposed to be. This is where we should be, right? The monitor is what they call it. And choose these criteria, choose goals based on these criteria to please the monitor, right? So you're trying to set goals, not SMART way, like specific, whatever the acronym is, but in a way that will help that expectation calculation adjust itself healthily. So that is, make the goal doable soon, make it certain instead of like debatable, make it positive. So it has a positive improvement when you actually achieve it. Make it concrete, which is the measurable part of the SMART goal. Make it specific, which is the specific part of the SMART goal. And make it personal so that it matters to you, not that it's like something that is a milestone of society at large. So I thought that was pretty useful because I don't really jive with the SMART goals, but it only takes 2 of the 5 criteria and runs with them. So let's see. Page 112. Oh, this is a good one. This is another concept that jumped out at me. Oh, with the time and money we spend on worrying about the shape of our bodies and attempting to make them fit, what else might we accomplish? Because it talks a lot about the patriarchy in here. Along with that comes self-regulatory fatigue. Okay, now out of everyone in the audience, who is hearing that phrase and going, oh my God, that totally describes what I have, self-regulatory fatigue? Because I definitely had my hand up. I was like, the constant monitoring and checking whether you're measuring up, not to anything external, just to like your own brain and your own expectations and, you know, stuff that you set out to do a long time ago. Self-regulatory fatigue. You just get tired of it. It doesn't work anymore. That was like a light bulb moment. If you're using up decision-making and attention-focusing cognitive resources on choices about food, clothes, exercise, makeup, body hair, toxins, and fretting about your body's failures, what are you too exhausted to care about that you would otherwise prioritize? So fill in the blank with your own private whatever. But like these little things that are not really important that you're constantly making sure get done. If you didn't have to worry about those, what really important things, urgent things, not urgent, important. There we go. Would you otherwise prioritize? So that was another big moment. Truth. Let's see. And then right after that, page 114. Oh, let's see. Where do I start? Can be a hassle when you're clothes shopping, frustrating when you're navigating public transportation, exhausting when you're just trying to buy groceries without people offering their opinions, silently or otherwise. It is experienced as another chronic stressor, like the rats who come home to find water poured all over their nests. And that stress accumulates. Okay, so the rat references to a scientific study where they like tilt the cage or they put like lights glaring or they, you know, put water all over the rat's bed when it's away and it comes back. And it's like, oh man, I felt so bad because the way they were describing the study, it was like they can take all these things thrown at them for a certain amount of time. And then after a while, they're just like, what the fuck is going on? I can't handle this. Why is God doing this to me? Basically, the poor little rats are like, why is my bed all wet? And I totally felt for them. So chronic stressors, that is what is happening to us. That's clear as day. We have modern life, modernity breaking in all these different ways. And it's a chronic stressor and the stress builds up. Of course we're going to feel it. We're going to be like, I can't handle this. So what do you do to detox? What do you do to reverse that feeling? And I will recommend this book to you so highly that like I won't tell you because I don't remember actually whether the rats were able to reverse that feeling. I can't remember. I will be reading this again. I don't know when, but I will be reading it again and I'll revisit whether, because I'm sure they said something about it, but I can't remember right now. So that's your little teaser. So yeah, chronic stressors. And okay, the last couple, this is one of the things I'm still wrestling with. So let's see, page 140 is talking about two things. Okay, researchers found that this effect is probably due, at least in part, to the fact that people tend to take better care of themselves when they're in a high-quality relationship. In other words, our self-care is facilitated by the ways we care for and are cared for by someone else. And so I thought, okay, so is it causal both ways or is it sequential? Because one of the things I've wrestled with is living alone. Like, do I have to become a perfect whole person before I can find high quality relationship? Or do I find high quality relationship somehow and then like build up to that like whole person? It's kind of like a catch-22. Like you have to do both at once. I don't know. This is a mystery. So that's the goal, to have both of those things. I just don't know how you create one without the other or get them both at the same time. You know, it's just like a weird thing. I'm just trying to think through. Let's see. Stress cycle 156. Okay. This is my last little sample here. Rest doesn't just mean sleep, though of course sleep is essential. Rest also includes switching from one type of activity to another. A break, a pause is as good as a break. A switch, a change is as good as a rest. Jesus Christ. Okay, I'm getting tired. Mental energy, like stress, has a cycle it runs through, an oscillation from task focus to processing and back to task focus. Boom. Okay, the idea that you can use grit or self-control to stay focused and productive every minute of every day. And for those of you who weren't here at the beginning, you won't get this, but if you replay, you'll understand. Every minute of every day is not merely incorrect. It is gaslighting, and it is potentially damaging your brain. Okay, so this is really helpful. So the beginning of this book, they talk about the stress cycle, meaning like evolution-wise, we developed as mammals to have a stress, fight or flight, right? So we run to our village because there's a lion chasing us, and we either join with the village and kill the lion or chase it away or whatever, and then we celebrate and then like let go of all the bad chemicals that flooded our system. But today, the stress cycle is something that's intangible and never really gets exercised from our system or resolved or celebrated the end of. So it just keeps going. And so she's saying that the mental energy is sort of similar. There's a process. You focus on a task, and then you have to break off and do something different because you need to process what you've learned. And this has only come to me like the last 5 years, is that you have this sort of system. I don't know why. Why don't we learn about how our brain works? I wish we did that more as, I don't know, high school or college students. That might be appropriate. Okay. So oscillation from focus to processing. So I thought that was just so valuable. So here's my little paperback copy. There's my rainbow tabs. And this is my starred book of the bunch. So there we go. Okay, that's exactly an hour. That's amazing. That was 9 books, everybody. So thanks for sticking in there. I hope you found something that you liked, either that I didn't like and you did, or that I, sang about and you think sounds good. So hopefully you can visit the links down below or go to your local library. Again, just a reminder, I've got a thermometer to sell some of my books, whether in ebook form or paperback. There's 75% off sale for all the ebooks. The links are in the description until August, which is my deadline. Okay, let's clean up the chat. So Julie says, self-regulatory fatigue, my weight, the number of books read and owned, did I walk today, what I freaking eat? Exactly. There's all this stuff that people are telling you how to think and feel, and like you regulate yourself on. So totally relate. Generally getting everything done. Exactly. Constance says, if there isn't something wrong with you, I'm not interested. Anne Lamott quote. Excellent deployment of that quote. Anne Lamott is not the person I vibe with most, but great quote deployment here for sure. Diane says, I think both at the same time. I mean, like a girls' night, sleep over parties, a cooking party, fun day, then still live alone. I think both at the same time. Oh, you're talking about like development of self versus high quality relationships. Girls' night, sleep, or over parties, a cooking party, fun day, then still live alone. I think what you're trying to encapsulate with this is you live alone, but you have high quality interactions with their relationships that matter, right? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah. Hey, Jim, did you just have a lesson? Sleepover, girls' night, sleepover, parties, cooking party, fun day, and still live alone. Okay, I think I got that right, but yeah. So there we go. 9 books, 2 rereads, 1 DNF, 2 outstandings, and then a lot of criticism. So I don't know if you agree or disagree, but you can put it in the comments below. And thank you to Team Replay. I will timestamp. I only got around to timestamping last week's today. So it's book week. I'm busy. I'm going places. I'm checking out new bookstores. So hopefully you're doing something similar in your neck of the woods. And having a good reading experience. Shake off that self-regulatory fatigue. Do it with me. Yay! Get out and I don't know, do what you need to do for you. Take care of yourself today. So that is our Wednesday wrap up, everyone. Thanks for watching. Diversify that reading shelf, and I will see you again Friday for Unputdownable Books. All right. Thanks, everyone.